Today we're going to chat about something that I think is a very important topic for us musicians, and that is what to do if music production is frustrating you or making you in any other way unhappy. Now there's a couple of parts to this, so I'm going to break this down into 3 parts. One of this is the sort of technical aspects that can be frustrating if you don't get them right, especially if you're a beginner. The second of these is your mindset and choosing to be in a kind of victim mentality towards whatever it is you're doing, maybe also including music production. And the third one is how you measure or define success or your goals, and how that can subconsciously lead to you not feeling satisfied or happy with the things that you're doing. So the first one, and I think this is one where it's super understandable, is if you're a beginner and you just don't have any real world knowledge and experience of making music. Yes, the software can be super overwhelming. You need to get into some form of music theory, probably. You need to learn how to mix, you need to learn how to master, you need to learn how to sequence, all these things. You need to learn how to use your DAW. And I can fully understand that can be overwhelming, and the results pretty much for everyone in the first couple of months, if not years, can be super disappointing. And I know exactly what it feels like when you press play on a track that you've just finished in your car or anywhere away from your studio, and it just doesn't sound at all like what you had expected. And to a certain degree, that's normal. It's something that is part of the learning curve, and it's actually something that will also help you develop your own sound, because through those mistakes, you'll sometimes hit on things where you go, even though this is kind of broken, it sounds really cool and I like it. And you'll get to things that are unique about you and your way of doing music, because often we make intuitive choices that lead us into cool places. So, if you're a beginner and if you're struggling and the first couple of tracks you do don't sound good at all, or you're not happy with them, it's normal and it's part of the process. However, that does not mean that should go on for months and months and months and years, because that brings us to the second thing. If you're still having that feeling after, let's say, 6 to 9 months or even longer, maybe a year or two, it points to that, in my opinion, you're pursuing a way of making music that is inherently broken or inherently just not leading you to the results that you want. And the way that I quantify these things is very black and white. Is something that I'm doing giving me the results that I want in the time that I want, yes or no? And if the answer is no, I need to revisit and rethink my way of doing something, not only music production, but especially, work in the studio, because there's a million ways to make a track. But there's probably only a couple of thousand ways that you can actually make a track that sounds good and gets your message across, because you can get lost in all the technical details and all the stuff on the outside that will not lead to a good mix or a loud master and a good arrangement and things like that. So if after a few months you're still not getting the results that you want, I would recommend you to revisit your creative process and really look at what are the things that are going wrong in my mixes and how can I build systems to prevent that from happening. And before you go off and think he's just telling me all this stuff because he wants me to buy his template, this is not what this video is about. Obviously we've built a system that deals with that, but like I said, there are thousands of ways to achieve this, and I think it's actually ideal if people find their own system for this. But before you get stuck in stuff for months on end, it's always useful to learn from people that have gone the path before you, and then adapt that to your needs and your specific sound that you want to achieve. So yes, we do offer tools and solutions for this, but this video is not about that. This video is about looking at your creative process and honestly realizing whether or not it's giving you the results that you want. And if you're spending more than a couple of months in the situation where you put in all the work or you do all the effort, you spend the hours and weeks on your tracks, and it still doesn't sound good, and you get into a rut of starting to talk yourself down and saying I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not cut out for this, maybe I should quit, it's just depressing, and all that kind of stuff that we all know, right? Maybe I'm an imposter, blah, blah, blah. I think it's very important to consider the possibility that you're also dealing with a victimization scheme, where rather than dealing with the problems and finding a way to go through them and finding solutions to these problems, we all, I include myself in this fully, we all tend to have a certain part of our character that identifies with this victim role, because it's a very easy way to get attention, and it's a very easy way to give up on progress, and it's a very easy way to feel sorry for yourself. and to just kind of get stuck in a rut of going, I'm not good at this, I don't know how to do this. And honestly, being stuck in that place is a choice. And I know this sounds tough, but there's, thousands of producers, millions of producers before you that have proven that you can get through that to a place where the music you make is inspired and sounds great. And if you choose to be stuck in that low place for months or years on end, you're doing exactly that. You're choosing to do that. It's not something that you're condemned to because you lack, any of the tools that you need to achieve what you want, because everyone has access to pretty much everything now if you have as much as a computer. So realize if you are putting yourself in a position where you're just not getting good results, also because you have identified yourself with kind of a underdog, low energy, I'm not good enough to do this, I don't deserve this, I'm an imposter kind of mindset about yourself, and try to transform that into something that is the opposite of that, because that's part of the equation to get out of this. And then the most important thing, I think, for you to get through this and to stop feeling unsatisfied about the results you're getting in the studio is to build yourself systems how you can actually achieve the results that you want fluidly and fast and in a fun way. And in my experience, the best way to do that is to be iterative about the process. So the time when you get a really great kick drum sound and it works on different systems, save that immediately as a sample and just use that for a while. And once you get a good bass line against it, again, save that, use that as a sampled instrument, save it note by note in the lowest 2 octaves, and use that for a while. And just keep building yourself something like that, where in the end, like the basic elements that I have here now are cool and they sound good. And now I can just focus on my musical ideas, my chords, my patterns, my melodies, the structure of my song, the arrangement. Because we all do get to points where we realize, hey, this is actually really cool. And then going back to zero on your next track and trying to figure that all out from scratch, it's not a very efficient and iterative way to go from good to from pretty good to this is starting to sound nice to great, this is amazing. If you keep going back to zero on the cycle rather than building on the levels you've already managed to achieve, you're going to make the process way harder for yourself than it needs to be. So those are the things that I can share you about this path of getting to a place where your music flows, where getting a good sound becomes easier. And yes, there are lots of musicians that are super experienced and will tell you they start a track from scratch every time because they know exactly how to do it and it's artistically very integral, to do everything from scratch. But if you're a beginner or an intermediate producer and you're struggling to find the right sound and you're sitting in a room that doesn't happen to have, maybe monitors that cost 20,000 euros and, room treatment for another 10K and converters that cost 5K, trying to do that kind of a very, sophisticated artistic process of starting from scratch every time is going to hinder your growth, and it's not going to get you to the place that you want as quick as if you start to work based on proven parts that you've already found for yourself. Yeah, that's what I can share with you about this journey that I've now been on for over 2 decades. And I've been there myself, how long it can take to get to a place where you get to good results. And the reason that inspired me to make this video is, if you follow this channel, you know that, we build templates. And recently I actually ended up doing a track for a manufacturer. And I just said, oh, you know what, since I'm only going to be using this synthesizer, I'm just going to wipe everything from the Ableton session and just use their synth and just put a kick drum against it. And when I did that, everything sounded so bad. And this made me realize, like, holy shit, I've gotten completely used to the quality of sound that I'm able to get by the systems that I've built on top of each other, where everything sounds good from the get-go. And this made me realize again, like after working like this now for years, when I went back to scratch, to zero, I was like, holy shit, this is going to take me hours to fix. And I immediately just went back to my personal template, put everything back in there, and I was like, oh, I'm home again. So just this goes to prove to you that even someone like me that has, a sound engineering education and over 20 years of experience mixing music, playing in bands since I was 14, etc. When I'm confronted with a blank Ableton session with nothing in it sounding good together, I am also still overwhelmed, and I'm just like, oh God. And what I've realized for myself is it's not necessary to go through that struggle if you've built yourself a functioning set of systems that you can rely yourself on, where the basic starting point that you get from is proven and sounds good. So my advice to you is build yourself a system like that so that you have a proven starting point where things sound good. When you get things right, save them, templatize them, drop them into your user library so you can use them in the future, and find a way to start climbing the steps of the ladder out of the basement of music production to a place where the stuff you do sounds good, fast, and inspires you. And the third part of this is how you define success, or what's your motivation for making music, for being creative. So if you define success as, achieving something like playing on big stages or playing in clubs, or, having, a track on the Beatport Top 100, fully understandable and things that many people go for and that make total sense. But my experience from seeing people make music that have gone on to become very successful, and in the time when I was also playing a lot of festivals and clubs and, being featured in magazines and stuff, usually the motivation for making music for the people that I've seen gone on to become very successful is in very few cases driven by a need to be recognized, to be seen, and to be what would be the normal kind of markers of success. Most of the people that make really amazing music do it from their heart with a deep sense of inspiration, and that's the stuff that then lands and resonates and gets you the bookings and gets you the Beatport listings or whatever it is. So yes, you can try to do this in a very rational way, that it's all about making music that will please others and that will get you to the Beatport, top 100 the fastest and get you the bookings and all that stuff. But I kind of want to just give you the alternative way of looking at this, that if you try to do that, very likely it's not going to work out. Because I guess people can probably feel what the motivation is, and the drive behind an inspired piece of music is rarely monetary in nature. So don't measure your success by whether or not you're able to achieve these external markers, would be my advice to you, but measure your success by how amazing you find the track and you find the art that you're making for yourself. So if you think what you've done is super amazing and you love it and you can listen to it, like, that is much more important in my opinion than what anyone else thinks about it. And yes, everyone has the paranoia that they're going to be the unrecognized genius or whatever. People love to talk about Mozart, I think it is, who was never really recognized for his brilliance until way after he was gone. But in the end, you'll only have, I think, an ongoing relationship of inspiration with your music if the music you do truly inspires you and expresses what you believe and what you feel, rather than what you think other people want to hear or what you think will sell or get you the bookings. So don't follow external things to prove to yourself that what you do is good or you're successful. Follow your heart, follow your vision, and they will guide you to whatever it is you need to experience, whether that's external success or processing something, or maybe just touching a handful of people with your music that transforms a part of their lives. It can be really like that. So that would be my advice to you, is follow your inspiration, follow your heart, follow your feelings. There's a reason why they're there, and they are the most secure, reliable marker that will take you to where I think you need to be or can be with your art and with your music. Okay, I hope that this video has been helpful and that you got something from it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.